Ladies and gentlemen of Traveling Arena, your man Joe Pierce Spider here. Hopefully everybody's doing good in Snowpocalypse 2026. One of the things I did want to do a video about is it's cold out there, it's snow, a lot of wind, and how to keep warm, but more importantly, safety. One thing that gets overlooked is not only do people unfortunately freeze to death, but they also die by other means trying to keep warm. So depending on where you live, your living situation, whether you're out in the country or suburb or you got an apartment, there's always numerous ways to keep warm, but more importantly to keep safe. All right. One of the good ways of keeping warm, depending on where you live, most apartment dwellers could, especially in New York and New Jersey, we could definitely identify with this, where, the apartments, they just don't have any heat. Landlords want to be cheap. They don't want to turn the heat on, or pipes freeze or whatever. They got some excuse not to have the heat on, and you're in an apartment freezing. And there's a number of ways you can keep warm in an apartment, in a house too, get you one of these. This is a small one that I keep in my room. An electric heater, as long as you have the power. Let's say if you're in an apartment and the heat's not on and you got power, you can still power one of these up and keep warm. I mean, yeah, the power bill may go up, but hey, are you really worried about a power bill, or are you worried about you and your kids keeping warm? So as long as you have electricity, you can go ahead and use an electric heater. One way of keeping warm, let's say if the power goes out, besides dressing warm, sleeping bags. As long as you get up under the sleeping bag and you got the body heat trapped up under there, sleeping bags is worth it. And it may sound silly, but for those apartment dwellers, get you a tent. You get you a tent, put it in the living room, you and your family in there, close it up, and trap that body heat. And plus, have the sleeping bags in there. You will keep warm. I mean, I've done it myself. I kept warm, in this outside sleeping bag, inside of a tent, in my living room. So you can do that, and also you can do that in the house as well. Of course, the power goes out. Put your tent. You got some sleeping bags. Gather the family. Make it one big adventure. Get inside that tent and put on sleeping bags. You got the body heat trapped up in there, and you'll be fine. Another way of keeping warm is if you have, let's say if the power is on, and you don't have an electric heater like the one I just showed, electric blankets. Those work. Many of them come with different settings. Let's say if you don't have a sleeping bag, tent, or an electric heater like I just showed, you can get you an electric blanket. They're pretty much relatively cheap. I know you can pick them up at thrift stores and everything. So that's another way of keeping warm in cold weather. Okay. Now, for those of you that live out in the country, and suburbs, you could probably do this as well, is a wood stove. Old school. Nothing beats having wood, burning it, and warming the place up. A wood stove is perfect. It still works. I mean, don't depend on technology. Old school, keeping warm. Hey, humans have survived thousands of years on it. You get your wood stove. Depending on the piping, you can basically warm up the entire house. The front room. And a good thing on the wood stove, you can cook. You can boil your water. Say, make you some coffee. So nothing beats a wood stove. As a matter of fact, if you live in the country or a log cabin, whatever, and if you don't have one, definitely pick one up. Definitely get a wood stove. And even if you're in the suburbs, you have the room, just have the pipe, face outside. Obviously, you don't want the smoke, smoking up the living room, whatever. But, you get you a nice wood stove, and that'll keep the place warm. Another way of keeping warm is a kerosene heater. You could pick those up, like Home Depot, Mass Pro Shops or whatever. Now, kerosene heaters are good. They will heat up the house. They do come with some danger. Obviously, if you have pets and small kids, keep them away from it so that they don't knock it over. But, despite the dangers, a kerosene heater will warm up the whole house. I mean, I used it before back when I had my gas cut off. I used kerosene heater before, and my place was nice and warm. As a matter of fact, I had to undress. I was in layers, but when it cranked up, I had to take some clothes off. It was too hot. So a kerosene heater is another way of keeping warm. Keep in mind, you got to get the kerosene, get that in advance. Don't wait till the last minute. Everybody's panic buying, but it will keep the house warm. All right. And another way of keeping warm, and I do this especially when I go camping and stuff. Get you a nice little buddy heater. This one's the little buddy. This one right here is good enough for a room. Now they come in different sizes. Obviously, this is the smallest one, but this is good for like a room, and also for a tent. I've gone out. I've gone camping out in Utah. Out in the cold, and I want to keep warm. So, with this, like I said, these do work. Get your propane, 1 gallon bottles. Get your propane, and again, like the kerosene, get that well in advance. Don't wait till the last minute, and all the propane's gone because of all the panic buying. But the buddy heaters, they do work. If you do use them, just leave the window cracked, not all the way, just a little crack. Just for ventilation. Get some little fresh air going. Get the propane fuel out. And also, if you're in a tent, this works as well in a tent. I've done it myself. Like I said, I've gone out in Utah. I've had one of these in my tent. I just had the little door open right there, ventilation. But buddy heaters, they do work, and they work very well. And they, like I said, they come in different sizes. Something like this is good for a room or a tent, but you can't get them bigger, where you can warm up like the living room or stuff like that. Living room and the dining room, you could keep that warm. Now let's talk about the danger ways of keeping warm. And this goes, it's blanket to everybody. It doesn't matter where you live, country, city, apartment, house, log cabin, where have you. One way of not to keep yourself warm, and that is bringing a grill in the house. It's dangerous. You smoke yourself up, or you smoke your lungs up. You will pass out and not even know it. I mean, it's not like, you get symptoms, you get, oh man, I'm feeling weird. I mean, sometimes, when it comes to gas is dangerous. Especially to humans. I mean, you would drop on the floor and not even know it. So do not bring, a grill in the house. Do not sit in your garage in the car with the heat on. Sadly, a lot of people do that, and the garage get filled up, or you can have ice in the tailpipe, and the gas is just blowing right back in the car. And again, you will black out and won't even know it. So do not sit in the car, in a garage, and keep warm. Now, if you're outside, it lessens the risk, but still, your tailpipe could easily have a frozen block of ice in it, just the same. And smoke is coming back in the car, and you're gone. So it's a risk. I understand if it's got to be done. If you get a chance, just check the tailpipe. Make sure you got no ice in there. Do it outside. Preferably don't do it in a garage. All right. And another way of dangerously keeping warm is, and I know many of us apartment dogs can identify with this. Do not have the oven on and you sitting in front of it. Now I know many of us have done this. I mean, I've done, as a, growing up, I've done it, a couple of times. That was like the only way to keep warm. Turn the oven on, open it all the way, huddle around it. That's the only way to keep warm. I mean, I understand that sometimes, it gets to the point where you've got no other way to keep warm. And I understand that, but it is dangerous. Last resort, I mean, I prefer bundling up. I suggest you bundle up in layers. Extra socks, long johns, pantyhose. Don't be afraid to wear gloves and mittens in the house. Don't be even a ski mask in the house. But, I advise against having the oven on and you're in front of it. That causes fires. All right? So keep warm, keep safe. That's the number one thing, safety. Think twice about bringing something in the house, any type of, anything that produces like gas, like smoke. I mean, obviously you're going to have gas with the propane and the kerosene, but like I said, those are safe as long as you have your window or even a door cracked, ventilation. But it's something like a grill with the charcoal, don't bring that in the house. Please don't start no fires in the house. And, try and keep warm. Unfortunately, some people do that. End up burning the house down. You have anything. Oh, and one more thing before I go. Candles, depending on the candles, you can keep warmer with candles. But be cautious with that around kids and pets. Keep them away from it. Because the last thing you want is, the cat gets up on the shelf and swipes at it, and the candle falls on the ground. Next thing you know, the carpet's on fire. That's the last thing you want to, is Fluffy to start a fire. Just playing around with the candle. So you can't use candles, but like I said, keep the kids and keep the pets away from it. So like I said, stay warm, stay safe, share, like, subscribe. Be well. See you in the next one. Spider out.